Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us.
Certainly.
My first question is, we're 11 days out now. We drive down these streets and it's lawn after lawn after lawn of debris. What's the scope of Harvey's damage today?
Almost every home in every community was impacted. And literally, this wasn't just a small rainfall. This was a historic, unprecedented rainfall where homes didn't just get 1 or 2 inches, they got feet of water in their home. So literally, people are emptying out their home, okay? For every big truck that we're sending out, we can only probably get the debris from one particular house. One truck, one house. Probably in terms of units that were impacted, could have been well over 100,000 units.
And what about the longer road to recovery? We still see areas that are completely underwater. Are we talking months? Are we talking years?
Well, in the city of Houston, there are 2 areas that are still dealing with flooding waters. One is northeast Houston, the Kingwood area, and the waters there are receding. The other area is in West Houston, and that's because of the release of water from the reservoir by the Corps of Engineers. And they're starting to lower those releases, the level of releases there. But those are the 2 areas. With respect to the other parts of the city of Houston, about 95% of the city of Houston is dry. Now, separate that from the region, okay? Because there are still major problems in the region. But in terms of the city of Houston, 95% dry, electricity grid, there are probably about 12,000 homes that are out of power. The wastewater system, the water system is fine. We're having to look to kind of redo a bypass in one of the water systems in West Houston, but the water is safe, is clean, so we're proud of that. Airports are now up and running. Port of Houston is up and going, and transit system is up and going. So we're getting back, but a lot of the damage is in people's homes.
Getting back to those controlled releases, how long do you plan to continue the controlled releases? And what do you say to the families who feel that their neighborhoods were sacrificed in the greater good of the city?
Well, the reality is that those reservoirs were put in place decades ago in order to protect everything on the lower end, so to speak. This was an unprecedented amount of waterfall. So what the Corps of Engineers, what they are saying to us, is that they have to build capacity on the west side of the dam. And in order to build that capacity, they're having these gradual releases over a period of time. Right now, at the level where they are right now, that will probably continue until about the 16th of September. And then there will probably be smaller releases for the next couple of months. But this was unprecedented rainfall. And what their concern is, if there's another storm or hurricane coming and they don't build that capacity on the west side of the dam, then it could be catastrophic. So that is a balancing, but those decisions are made not by the mayor, not by city council. Those decisions are made by the Corps of Engineers.
So September 16th, that's almost 2 weeks away. Those people aren't getting back in their homes for quite a while.
Yeah, it will be some time for those who currently homes are inundated with water. Now, if they don't have any water in their homes right now, they're fine. If they do have water in their homes, it's gonna take another 10 to 14 days. But the water level, the releases are starting to decrease. And so you'll start to see things reside gradually, but it won't be like you go out tomorrow and everything is dry. But if you don't have any water in your home, you're not going to get water in your home. You're fine, but it is going to take some time. And my heart goes out to individuals who did not flood because of the aftermath of the hurricane, but their homes are flooding because of the release of water, and many of those homes never flooded before. And we're talking about 2,600. Let me just say that because I made a mistake one time saying 26, but it's 2,600 homes that we are talking about that are impacted now from the release.
So something on the minds of a lot of the people that we've spoken to that were flooded is the level of toxicity and bacteria that was in those floodwaters. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I think anytime you have flooding of this magnitude and the water is running all over the place, you're going to get contaminants that are coming from all over. I think that's just a part of when you have flooding, and a lot of that water is stagnant. It's not constantly running off, but stagnant, staying still. That's why I certainly discourage anybody from walking in or playing in this water. It is not safe. It is full of contaminants. You don't know what you're walking in. And then on top of that, you don't know where you're walking. There could be manhole covers that are no longer there. So you have to be very, very careful. There are critters in this water. It's kind of swampy. So it's just not safe at all for anybody to be walking in the water. It's not even safe for our first responders.
People are worried about the level of toxicity in their homes if there had been high floodwaters.
Well, if their homes were inundated with water, they just can't just let it dry out. You have to pull out that sheetrock, okay? From every place that got wet, you have to pull it out because the mold and the toxicity will simply spread. In some cases, we're going to be dealing with homes that simply cannot be rehabbed, so to speak. They may have to be rebuilt. But wherever that water hit inside that home, you literally have to cut that out and throw it out. Rugs, carpet, chairs, furniture. And that's why when you're driving around the city of Houston, literally, you are seeing people who are emptying their houses because their houses were flooded.
Are you satisfied with the FEMA response and the timeliness of the processing of claims?
Up to this point, I'm satisfied. They are moving. What I asked for was to move with a degree of urgency, and they have moved with a degree of urgency. We're very appreciative. For example, when it comes to debris removal, they are providing the city and the region a 90% reimbursement. That's much higher than the 75% that they normally will have allowed. With respect to emergency protective services, shelters, law enforcement, first responders, they're providing 100% reimbursement. I'm appreciative of that. We have asked for a significant advancement so that we can move this heavy debris. And from all indications, they're going to get back with me, and I think that's going to be significant. We need FEMA representatives on the ground. These recovery distribution centers all over the city. I want a few more. You know, they've authorized about 7 now, but I would like to see about 7 more in the city of Houston. But by and large, you know, they have people specifically assigned to the city of Houston that are working very closely with me. They've been very cooperative. I've met with the FEMA director, Brock Lone from D.C. I've talked to the president's chief of staff, General Kelly. Had a chance to visit with the president himself. So at this point, yes. But as long as we continue, all of us move with a high degree of urgency. That's on the federal level, the state level, and on the local level. This is a partnership, and all of us have to work it out very, very best and work together.
Because people are really struggling. They need money now because their houses are rotting as we speak, and every single day that we wait, that's more decay and more toxicity in their homes. What do you say about the timeliness of the donations that are coming in, and what is your message to Congress about funding? Well,
you know, to Congress, I would say this is not a time for party politics. This is a time to vote and vote yes. The initial request that's been asked by the president, approximately $8 billion. That's just the first tranche. A lot more is needed. But the people in the affected region need a quick vote, and hopefully that vote will take place this week. I get a daily printout from FEMA in terms of who have applied for financial assistance and how much has been awarded. I want to say as of this morning, that number may be up to about $52 million in the Houston area itself, but that number, you know, it's going to grow exponentially. But every day, I ask for a report from FEMA. Tell me how many have registered. Tell me how much money has already been awarded that's in the pockets of Houstonians. And I want to see that every day, and they've been supplying me with that information.
So we spoke to people in this neighborhood who still haven't heard back from FEMA. They've gotten the original call saying we've got your request, but they haven't heard anything back.
Well, that's why I'm amassing a lot of volunteers going door to door to check with people to find out if they have heard back, and if they haven't heard back, then we will advocate on their behalf. We're not just leaving it up for people to fend for themselves. In this situation, those of us, people like myself and others, we're going to make sure that we advocate on their behalf. I talk to FEMA representatives every single day, 5, 6, 8 times a day, and I certainly will be bringing that to their attention. That's why I like to see the report every day to see who was registered, what has the response been, and how much money has been put in the hands of Houstonians so they can start rebuilding their lives.
How long do you plan on keeping the convention center open, and what's going to happen to those people, some of whom were homeless before this disaster?
And we're working on a housing plan for them. The convention center will probably stay open, let's say maybe towards the end of this coming week, no later than the 14th. We're putting together a housing plan. The number was at its max 10,000. It's now right around, the last number I saw this morning was about 1,600. It is the hardest population hardest population to place. But we're working on a housing plan for them. For those who were homeless prior, we'll look for shelters in other areas. But the goal is not to increase the population of people who are homeless on our street than existed prior to the storm. So we're not going to be pushing people out of the convention center and putting them back on the streets. Our goal is to place people in housing with a roof over their head instead of being on the street lying in the dirt. We don't want that, and so we're putting together a plan. I simply hope that everybody will work with us so that we can transition them to a better place, and in many cases a better place than what they had prior to the storm.
There's been a lot of discussion of development occurring without any nod to flood concerns. What is your feeling going forward? Are you going to try and tear down some of those neighborhoods?
Well,
and how are Houstonians holding up?
Well, number one, let me answer that. Houstonians have a strong spirit. This is a can-do city. Okay, that has not changed. Even when we are down, we're smiling because we know we're going to get up. So we are a can-do spirit city. Now, we always need to learn. We will continue to grow. We will continue to develop. But we can do it in a very smart and intelligent way. Okay? So we can learn to see those areas that are more prone to flood. We certainly shouldn't be doing any building in flood-prone areas. And we should be careful about building in areas along the bayou. So I think we can be intelligent and smart how we develop. This is a growing city. It's very dynamic. But at the same time, let's take advantage of technology, innovations, be very creative, minimize flooding. We can't stop Mother Nature, but we certainly can take definitive steps to mitigate against the risk of flooding. We just can't continue to do things as we've always done it and expect a different result. That's not going to happen. And we don't need to put ourselves in a position where we are constantly seeking help from FEMA, the federal government, to reimburse us when we've done some things that we should not have done. As we go forward, we will take note of what has happened. We'll find ways on how we can be smarter in the development as we meet the needs of being a global city. We're going to do that, and we're going to be cognizant of what has happened from this storm and previous storms to try to mitigate future costs down the road.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.